What is up, Bears fans? Welcome to the Bears Huddle podcast, your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. I'm Owen James, and this is all your latest news, guys. Look, we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, the build-up to the new season. It begins in 7 days. In 7 days' time, we will be getting ready, preparing for the first game of the 2025 NFL season for the Chicago Bears as the Bears take on the Minnesota Vikings in an NFC North clash, titanic NFC North clash. Lots of storylines will be coming out of that game, no doubt. But we're going to look ahead, obviously, to that game. We're going to start build up to the game, obviously, as we go along. We're going to look at the Bears roster. We're going to look at the issues and the stories around the Bears as we head lightning speed, headlong into a new NFL season with probably more hope than we've had in a long time going into a season. More hope that we can stay out and not be the basement Bears and be the Bears that are in contention for at least the playoffs this coming season with new head coach Ben Johnson, new DC Dennis Allen. And obviously Ben Johnson has spoken this week as well about how Dennis Allen has been a great help to him as a first-time head coach. Obviously Dennis Allen having a lot of head coaching experience with the New Orleans Saints and the Las Vegas Raiders as they are now. But look, we're not talking about that now. We're going to talk about a few injury concerns, a few concerns going into the new season. And I think, look, we obviously stay optimistic. There are a lot of positives going into this new season. Obviously, Caleb seems to be getting his act together in the new offense. We've obviously got a lot of threats on the offensive side of the ball in Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, D'Andre Swift, Luther Burden on my Zacchaeus. The offensive line is rebuilt a lot better. Yes, there are still questions over the left tackle, and we will touch on that in this video. But, one of the big concerns for me is the number of injuries and number of questionable players we seem to be picking up going into the start of this new season. Looking at, obviously, these two areas in particular on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I've got no doubt in my mind that Dennis Allen will have this defense absolutely snarling, growling, ready to go, ready to blitz the hell out of JJ McCarthy in that first game. But you've got to look at this and be concerned about the injuries, the players who are out and missing for the Bears, not only on the edge, but in the secondary. I mean, look, the edge rushers, you look at the off defensive line and the starters there, you've got enough quality there to cause teams some substantial headaches, problems, nightmares, to give quarterbacks sleepless nights. Montez Sweat and Dio Adeyingbo. Obviously, we were hoping that Dio can get back to what he'd been previously after suffering a very poor fall-off year last year. And Montez Sweat as well, as getting back. Although Sweat, all the reports coming out of training camp is that he is absolutely firing this season. Grady Jarrett obviously brings valuable experience and quality. And Gervon Dexter, is someone who I think gets a lot of unfair criticism and hate. His stats from last season more than compare with some of the better players who get, much better press than Dexter. So I think, there's a lot of quality there. Andrew Billings, obviously, fit, ready to go. Another one who last season, until he went down injured, the Bears' defensive line looked very, very good and very strong. Once Billings went down, there was issues. Shamar Turner is questionable, which is a concern. The big-bodied rookie out of Texas A&M is a major threat. That obviously leaves behind Dio and Montez only Daniel Hardy and Dominique Robinson. Now, no disrespect to Daniel Hardy and Dominique Robinson, but I'd much rather have Austin Booker as one of those backups. I still think it leaves us a player short. I'm not talking about starting quality. I'm not talking about being regretful that we didn't go for Trey Hendrickson or we didn't try to get Micah Parsons. I'm not talking about that at all. What I'm talking about is having someone who is a high quality backup alongside, obviously Austin Booker if he was fit. Now, Booker should be back around week 6, but obviously that gives us 4 games with no high-quality backup. And I think that is definitely a position that Ryan Poles does need to perhaps look at and address before we go into the new season. Something that does need to be looked at. The other issue, I think, and this is the bigger one for me, is the secondary. Secondary is certainly worrying. Look, we'll talk about the cornerbacks in a minute, where we've got 2 players who are highly questionable to start week 1 in Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon. Obviously, Terrell Smith is on IR, Tysheem Johnson, the undrafted free agent, on IR as well. And obviously, Zach Frazier is out for the season. Now, look, Tyreek Stevenson, I think, is good, decent, gets a lot of unfair criticism and unfair press as well. Kevin Byard, again, decent. Now, the question is, what is going on with Jaquan Brisker? Brisker, last practice, carted off, radio silence from the Bears. Now, the hope has to be that no news is good news, that Brisker had a minor injury, a minor knock, and he's taken his time. He's got himself rebuilt and he's ready to go again once the season gets underway. That's got to be the big hope coming out of that injury. So look, the other thing obviously around Jaquan Brisker going into a contract year, Jaquan obviously has had a lot of injury worries in the past. Now, there was rumours that Ryan Poles was at a recent Ohio State game and Notre Dame game, looking at a possible replacement for Brisker, looking at a possible running back, looking at a number of different things for next year's draft already. However, Brisker, Brisker on form, Brisker at top quality is a big, hard physical safety and someone who can bring a lot to this team. And certainly, since coming back from from that horrific concussion, he, in practice, in OTAs, in minicamp and in preseason, had shown out well and played exceptionally well and trained exceptionally well. So high hopes that Brisker was going to come back, hit the ground running and be bang in form for the Vikings in week 1. Like I said, the issue there, the concern is that what is going on with that injury? Where are we up to with that injury? Now, the cornerbacks are a big concern for me. Jalen Johnson, obviously the CB1, the guy who you'd want to put on Justin Jefferson, the main guy, is going to be out for a good couple of weeks, I think. So who comes in and backs him up? Who is the guy that you put in that cornerback position? Now, some people may have said, well, Kyler Gordon could come in and possibly play as an outside corner. But again, Gordon is another one who is questionable with a hamstring injury. Now, if you want to be chasing wide receivers, Kyler Gordon, hamstring injury, perhaps not the best mix. It's a concern. Kyler Gordon, obviously highest paid nickel back in the league, absolute superstar, a guy who Dennis Allen talked about, using in different positions as a safety, as an outside corner. With that injury concerns, what happens with him? Where are we up to with his recovery? Again, a concern. So that does kind of raise a question. If Kyler Gordon is not ready to go week 1 and Jalen Johnson won't be ready to go week 1, who comes in and plays opposite Tyreek Stevenson? Do we go for the guy we claimed off waivers, the former Bear Jalen Jones? Or do we go for Nashawn Wright? Now, Nashawn Wright shone in training camp, yet was absolutely awful in preseason. And for me, doesn't really bear thinking about. Terrell Smith is out, obviously, so that pretty much leaves just Jalen Jones. So a lot is going to fall on that young man and his ability to come back and show that he was worthy of that roster spot. It's the same with the safeties, really. If Brisker can't go, does Elijah Hicks come in? Does Jonathan Owens come in? Do you really see them as being adequate replacements for someone of Jaquan Brisker's talent? The secondary is a concern for me, and I genuinely believe that maybe that's something that Poles needs to look at and address before the season opens. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on that secondary issue we have at this moment in time. Now, somewhere else that obviously, has been a little bit of a concern is that left tackle position. Ozzy Trapillo, Braxton Jones, who starts? Now, if you look on the unofficial depth charts, the depth charts that seem to be around at this moment in time, something like on ESPN.com, a number of others, left tackle is put down as Braxton Jones, with Ozzy Trapillo as primary backup to Braxton Jones. The offensive line, other than Braxton Jones, looks quality. Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, Darnell Wright, looking good, obviously, with good backups like Theo Benedette, Ryan Bates, obviously another one, can play guard. Theo Benedette has looked really good in preseason. I think as a good backup. Luke Newman has looked decent in preseason. Again, a good backup. But this left tackle position is still one that is of concern. Now, it does look at present and going off preseason that it's Braxton Jones who will be the starting left tackle. But I dare say if you actually asked Ben Johnson, who is your guaranteed number 1 left tackle, I think he would still talk about it being a competition. He wouldn't, I don't think, lay everything on Braxton Jones. Braxton Jones, for me, is a major worry as the starting left tackle. A guy who's there to protect Caleb's blind side, a guy who's there to be that strong outside edge. He's a worry. He is a worry. His bull rush, he's still really vulnerable against that bull rush. His stance is still not great. His anchor is still not great. He gets run over an awful lot, and there was a couple of times in preseason where he absolutely stank on blocks. To me, he doesn't look like the guy. And again, as another guy going into a contract year, do you really want to risk him? Is he the man? Now, Ozzy Trapillo is a rookie. It looked like it was going great for Ozzy up until obviously Braxton's return. Now, Look, I personally would go with Ozzy. I think he's got a lot to offer. Yes, he's still got some weaknesses. Yes, he's still got a lot to learn, but I still think he'd be better than Braxton Jones. And I still think with his physical size and his imposing nature, he would have the edge over Braxton Jones. However, I do think that the Bears will go with Jones week 1, which I do think is a bit of a mistake. This, for me, is obviously still, look, I'm still optimistic. I'm still positive about the team coming up for this first week 1 game. But there are questions, there are issues that need to be addressed. Players who are out, players we need to get back for that week 1 clash. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure speaking to you as always. Bear down.